There's no doubt. Absolutely perfect, because, you know, we don't want to see a lot of colour in race. At the same time, though, we do want to see some sort of strong home TAB inclination. Otherwise, you know, we're not going to feel overly confident with the selections that are being made. So, all right, so I'm just looking down the bottom of the field, and it's a really good habit to get into. Make sure that you look at that bottom of the field, and make sure that you're looking for things that may not sort of, you know, you sort of may not have thought to look at before. That magic model is one of them. It's a little bit interesting, that runner, actually, for a number of reasons. Not all of those reasons aren't in front of us on the screen. It's on under the radar, and I did a little bit of research on it this morning and last night. So nothing really too strong at the bottom half of the field. That Trusting, the number 13, certainly getting a nice little bit of a hit coming late there at the 1 minute mark in Victoria, and that's quite interesting, and that really is probably going to be the selection that we will take in this race. Again, you can see I've got two black bookers in this race, Hus de Lift and More Than Great, and they're both very high rated runners, and I'm not going to touch them with a 10-foot pole. Why? Because there's no indications on them. Okay, so I'm just waiting for things to sort of unravel a little bit more in front of us. Of course, that More Than Great is starting to get a little bit of a niggle at the 0 second mark there in Queensland, but I'm still a little bit sort of shy of this race because of the lack of any home TAB movement. Now, I'm just going to turn the radio on so that while I'm talking here, I don't miss the jump or anything.
The dry surface like we have today. The Viking Legends rider, I've chatted the Saddle Magic model about to come up with Fino over the Mikado with More Than Cash. So waiting on 5 runners. If you've just joined us, we had a dead league at the Premier Stakes, the previous Mentality and Cronin dead heating. The Governors for the winner, Feeling Ready, finished 3rd. Cousin Rob.
Well, that was interesting. I was wondering what happened, and here we go. Look at Trusting. That's it for me. That's enough for me. That is more than enough for me. Just go my little token, little each way, no pressure investment on that while I'm doing the webinar. And Trusting is definitely the key indication there. It's really the only one that's got any kind of consistency in the home TAB. It's really the only one that's shown us anything unusual, and it's also the only one that's got some consistency across the 3 totes. So, you know, that's a very strong indication to jump on there. And the other one there, to a lesser degree, is the number 6, and I am a little bit fearful of that, but hey, it's all over now because they've just jumped.
Came out very quickly, not all that far away as Bombay Sling, up to Leafs, and then Train Denman going around the outside into about 4th position. More Than Cash is right around, followed by Fear No Other. Midfield on the rail behind them, Romanus, followed by Viking Legend, Striker getting back from Magic Model. Trusting is second last, and the Mikado's gone back to last of all. More Than Great took the lead, but now trapped out wide. More Than Cash decides to press on, and at the 800 it's More Than Cash going to the lead from More Than Great, and Denman punching up in the middle. A couple of lengths behind them, Bombay Sling and Will to Win. Up to Leafton next, followed further back by Fear No Other, and then came Romanus, Striker, Viking Legend out a little bit wide. Behind them, Magic Model. Trusting's got a lot of horses in front of him at the moment, and the Mikado's starting to run up along the rail. Around the home turn, and More Than Cash is just the leader from Denman. More Than Great behind him from Bombay Sling and Will to Win. Denman charged up on the outside to go to the front. He let him go, McAvoy, and he raced away. More Than Great's coming out behind him, 2 lengths away. And then Bombay Sling, More Than Great is coming to eat into this lead. It's Denman just in front, More Than Great on the outside. Denman is digging deep. McAvoy goes for the whip, he lifts, and Denman is too good. Raced away and won it by length and a quarter. More Than Great. Bombay Sling got third to Mikado, a good run 4th.
Okay, so we missed out on Trusting there, most unfortunately. We can sort of blame the time and blame all sorts of things, but, you know, like this time of day has always been a bit sticky for a lot of us, hasn't it? And we always have had a bit of a rule there not to bother with 3 o'clock. All right, and so with that in mind, we should probably just stick to what the initial plan was of the demo, and that is to go back over what's happened throughout the day today. Does anybody have any questions just before I move on? Over on the right-hand side, you just stick your hand up. Do you have any questions, Keith?
The way we've talked with the TABs, it's very obvious if you are having an each-way bet or a non-low bet, just really look at those TABs, small colour on TABs, it's a big help.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Brian?
Yes, I just see the BetLogic selected 630 and 10. What about a strategy of sort of looking at the value you're getting on each of those and picking one that, say any one of those? I mean, the 6 came second, and if you look at number 6, you're getting $6.20 and $2.40. So is that a good way to look at it? Look at what's top rated, and then in BetLogic, and then also look what you're getting good money for.
Well, the number 13 was the top-rated runner in that race. So, the number 13 was definitely the strongest indication in that race, regardless, and was, look, the number 6, as I said, I was always a little bit iffy about the number 6, and I considered that to be the real danger in that race. Obviously the favourites won it, and look, this time of day is always going to get a little bit tougher because we've got the tougher races on. I mean, the Run to the Rose 3-year-old handicap's quite a strong race. It's a group race. This time of day does sort of show the group races and things like that, and that's really why there's always been that rule of thumb to get out of the market before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because this time of the afternoon, look, I can tell you sometimes, and a lot of you have noticed this no doubt in the past, sometimes when the first half of the day is a little bit slow and there's not much activity in terms of, good strong indications, the latter part of the afternoon actually can turn out to be quite good. Those days are rare indeed. I know that, one of those instances was last week when we did the webinar last week. As soon as I hung up from the webinar, we had that number 2, Nadim's, whatever it was, and that Bella Soleil come in, and, we made a damn good profit out of that race. So, and then after that, I know that Lenny B, and there was a couple of others, and a few people sort of saying things in the chat and things like that. So actually the last couple of hours of the day last weekend was one of those instances where, the first half of the day there was really nothing. And we all know that. We did the webinar early and there was really nothing to look at. And then the second half of the day was actually quite good. What my thoughts were today was 2 things. I had demos and I've got visitors, clients, other members that have come down to the office today. And I wanted to spend the first couple of hours looking after them and looking after the demonstrations, and then for us to go back over and have a look at what everybody's done for the day. And the first half of today is a typical Saturday. It is a really, really typical Saturday where the indications are much more likely to come to fruition and provide us with a success, with a positive result. Whereas later in the day, you find that things can be quite topsy-turvy, and things, again, I think, as I've sort of mentioned about half an hour ago, sometimes you end up with those sorts of indications where they're the only niggle in the whole race because it's such a tough race. These group races, Brian, are so tough to separate in terms of form, right? Number one.
Yeah.
So if they're difficult to separate in terms of form on paper for the punters, they're going to be hard for us to separate the money and to do those sorts of things. So really there was nothing. I mean, it was really quite a flat race, right? And we've got a little bit of a blue indication in New South Wales TAB on the number 13. But it was the only strong fluctuation in the home TAB. And then we've got this followed up. So for me, what ends up happening in a lot of these races is that, every punter and his dog using the TABs and any other method that they possibly can are looking for any kind of fluctuation anywhere so that they can jump on and make some money, because it's been so hard for them to separate the form. Whereas earlier in the day, that's not so much the case. Earlier in the day, they're not tougher. They're not so tough to separate on paper, and therefore the money that actually comes in for them is a lot more confident money, whereas this time of day, it's not so. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And